All right, we are live back with our MEDDIC experts panel. Welcome back. Welcome to the experts of the panel. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start with some brief introductions from each of you. Caroline, would you please start and just tell the audience a little bit about who you are and a bit of your background, please, for us.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a MEDDIC addict. Reason is I was unconsciously competent, and then I started to make the biggest deals I've ever made thanks to MEDDIC. Since I've discovered MEDDIC at BMC, I've worked only for MEDDIC company, and I love it so much that 2 years ago I created my own company, Uppercut-First, where we basically enable startups and scale-ups in their go-to-market strategies, including aligning all teams, and obviously we use MEDDIC as a background.
Love it. Thank you very much. Cliff, introduce yourself, please.
Yes, how we doing? Thanks for having me. So Cliff Dorsey. So my experience with MEDDIC. So my very first technology job, spent 4 years at PTC with some of the MEDDIC OGs. Jack Napoli, John McMahon, Dunkel, kind of learning it directly and learning how to be a sales leader. So as I've spent 25 years doing this and been a CRO, implementing this and having it as part of the playbook for repeatable and scalable success. So thanks for having me.
Welcome, Cliff. And last but not least, Em, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I've been in tech sales and startups for the last, 11, 12 years. I've rolled out MEDDIC at 4 companies now, and I'll second Caroline on the addiction piece. I'm perpetually paranoid, so MEDDIC just fits so nicely in both my professional and personal life to de-risk all decisions that I make.
That's not the first time I've heard that people are using MEDDIC in their personal lives as a kind of a framework with different decisions they make. So
Goodness, this is taking a direction.
That's next level.
So what's Caroline? What do you think is the most important element in MEDDPICC? I'm going to give you that question first.
Oh, you mean the letters?
Yeah.
No arguments. I and C. If you don't have I and C.
Oh no, you can't. I'm going to argue straight away. You can only have one. I'm going to give you one choice. I know it's hard. It's like picking your favorite children.
Oh,
I thought you were generous.
Man, I don't know. Okay. Wait. I'd say C can help you find the pain. So C.
Good. That's a good answer. Okay. The part of this game that I forgot to tell you guys is that once someone said a letter, you can't repeat them. So what do you think is, if you can't say C, what's next?
Well, now it's getting hot in here. It's I next.
The I. Yeah, that is getting hard for you now, isn't it, Cliff? What do you, if you can't say champion, you can't say implicate the pain, what are you going to go with, Cliff?
Well, I was going to break the rules and say that I and M are basically the same. They're the same thing. It's like the yin and yang of why do anything. So I've got to pair up the yang with I there, because yes, champion's most important, but you don't get a champion, right, unless you have a pain to build on.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. I quite often will ask people this question, and they typically, unlike you folks, typically go straight to champion, and there's like no question about it. And one of the things I realized was I typically found myself asking more senior people that question, like podcast guests, for example, and they would have no doubt about it. But I'm very much of the shared opinion that you have, that they are. You can't have one without the other, because if you have a champion but no pain, how are you ever going to get the deal done once it has to go to other people as other stakeholders? So I always think that the reason why I would see that more senior people see the importance of the champion is because typically, let's say a CRO, by the time that they actually get to see a deal, it should have pain. You're not going to put a deal in front of a CRO, CRO, if you haven't found the pain, right? So I think that I love how you guys sort of said it there, and how close they come together. So yeah, really, really good. But I am going to press you further, because I didn't let Caroline get away with that. And so I'm not going to let you get away with it either, Cliff. If you can't have champion, you can't have implicate pain. What do you think is the next most important element of MEDDIC?
Well, I did say metrics because it's
okay.
the thing that it's the thing that quantifies the pain and ultimately makes that cycle of like generating the urgency. I think there's probably, so I'll say metrics.
Cool.
Probably EVs.
Okay, so we've got the M, the I, and the C. The M, the I, and the C. I always think like it's a shame that the E isn't more important because mice sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Like it's an acronym that we can remember. But for me, when I get asked this question, I agree with everything you've said. The question that I'm going to ask you next is, what is the most underrated element? What is the one you think that's not necessarily the most important, but the one that when you see people use it properly, it has like the biggest improvement over their peers? I'm going to go back to you for that one, Caroline. What do you think?
Me?
Yeah.
Or Cliff? Yeah. Definitely decision criteria. So I think a lot of people see the decision criteria as something they are receiving from the customers rather than we should influence it from the very beginning of the discovery. And if you do it right, the decision criteria is basically the required capabilities. So what you need to fix the problem, what you need to fix the pain. And if they are done properly, the required capabilities are your differentiators. So the decision criteria is overlooked because I see a lot of people talking about price as a decision criteria. No, it's not. So it has to be like you have to influence it and you have to have agreement from your champion that the decision criteria are the required capabilities. So the neutral format of your differentiators.
Love that. Well, love that. What do you think, Em? Do you agree?
I do agree. But in the spirit of playing your game, I'm going to say metrics for mine. And the reason for that is I think that MEDDIC plays a really great part in being a partner for sales people. And a lot of times MEDDIC is really powerful and transformational technology. But I think where people get a little bit lost sometimes is that in transformational tech, there's a bifurcation between disruptive transformational tech. You're coming into an already pre-existing market and you're making some noise, right? MEDDIC plays really nicely there. And I think, sometimes you can predefine the metrics that you're looking for, the metrics that you're trying to sort of influence, your opportunities with. The other side is evangelical transformational technology, where you're kind of coming in and you're trying to create pain. You're trying to create an opportunity for you to position your technology. And I think a lot of times there I see salespeople sometimes gloss over metrics and not spend enough time there. And so I usually see people differentiate themselves against their peers when they're willing to get into the weeds there with their champions, with their EBs to really define what metrics are going to move the needle.
I love that. I love that. And what you were talking about there with, thinking about the transformation and thinking about the process, I want to like flip that question on its head a bit and put this to Cliff and talk about from a perspective of people listening along now. There'll be many people that work at organizations that are using a variation of MEDDIC, but there'll also be a lot of people thinking this all sounds really great. This sounds exactly like what we need, but we're a large organization, or I may be not a decision maker in this organization. How should I get that buy-in from the CRO, from the CEO, that we can really do some of the great things you've all talked about from a perspective of implementation? What would be your advice to individuals like that, Cliff?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I mean, I think first, like, why is that buy-in important, right? And I think the buy-in and the reason it's important is if you're going to achieve the full abilities, right? Something transformational for the organization in terms of scale and repeatability, you have to have organizational buy-in, right? I'm sure that's on your maturity scale somewhere. But, I often see sales leaders trying to implement this, and it's fine. They can implement it for their team and have some level of impact. But, selling to, a CEO, a couple pointers I might give, a lot of times these are people that come from product or engineering backgrounds. And my suggestion would be to really, and for them, sales, you got to appreciate, for them, sales is like art, actually more like black magic. They don't really understand it, right? So framing it that I like to think of MEDDIC as the physics of selling. It is the science of selling, not the art. And CEOs, especially from that type, love the fact that it makes things evidence-based and concrete and not opinion. And I think that really appeals to that kind of a CEO.
I love that answer so much. And I think it's so much. I love the breakdown of the really thinking about what it means and who it means the interesting things for. And I'm going to put that question to you, Em, from a different perspective, because let's say if we fast forward many years and you get off of the data robot rocket ship and you find yourself in a new role, you turn up, same type of role, same type of potential in a company, but they don't use the variation of MEDDIC and no one's even heard of it. Like, how do you get that buy-in from the wider organization, that your peers that you're working with? What would be your approach?
So I'd want to know what current state of the business looks like, right? And use the current state to either evaluate where there's strengths and where there's opportunities. And within those opportunities, that's a great place to introduce MEDDIC. MEDDIC should be something that's used to de-risk business. MEDDIC should be used as a developmental tool, both for your internal employees, but also for the folks that you're working with, your champions, your EBs, those folks from a customer's perspective that, they're 99% of their day-to-day is not to buy your technology, right? MEDDIC helps influence that and helps them make good decisions in their work to ultimately give them a win.
I love that. That's great. And it's like, I don't know if you were thinking of this or whether it's just natural to you, but you were basically thinking, well, I'd need to do some discovery and I'd really need to understand the current before state and then work through to the after state. So it was great to hear you say that. Did we have a question from the audience? Did I get the signal that there's one that we can pop up on screen? I can't see the screen. So maybe Caroline, if you see the question come up.
You'll list that the most important letter, what is the most misused letter in MEDDPICC that you treated that? Wait a minute. Oh, there were so many questions.
That's a great question.
Can you become a MEDDIC expert internally? Can you really create pain? Oh, I like that one. I think managers have the lack of focus on which element the most.
Is there a question on the screen? Is there a question on the screen?
There's the question in the screen we answered. So, okay. So where do you think managers have the lack of focus on which element the most? Can you really create pain? I like that one.
Okay, answer that one.
All right. Yes.
Did you ask that question?
No, I didn't. Can you create pain? Yes and no. You can uncover and you can help the customer. We call this two-sided questions. These are the discovery questions that don't feel like you have somebody interrogating you, but you have a conversation that makes you think like, this is actually what you feel when you're in a podcast. I was talking about being interviewed in Andy's podcast. Andy's asking a question like, oh, I didn't think of that. And you start thinking, you want to be that person. You want to be that person that sparks the question to your clients like, oh, yeah, that might be a problem. How do you do this, though? You need to be prepared. You need to know what's happening in the news, what's happening in their business, what their business strategy, where is it that something can be broken, right? And you want to go that route because you want to go the route where something might be broken and I can fix it. The only way you can do this is that if you drive the conversation all about them in the direction of problems you can only fix. But if you start talking about feature, functions, product, it's very hard to go back to the pain and create it. So pain has to exist or you can't create it, but sometimes they don't know they have it. And this is where you can implicate it. As Andy says, there's 3 I in the I, right?
Yeah, I love that. That's a good question. I'm glad that one was asked. Cliff, I want to go to you on something,
Sure.
which is we talk a lot about the enablement of the common language. And I think, we all know that more than what I said earlier about just learning what the letters mean, there's a lot more to it to become proficient in the use of just understanding how to use MEDDPICC, how to deploy it in your deals or that kind of thing. But we've also talked about the potential of unlocking so much more than just having individuals using it as a kind of a framework on their own deals. What advice would you give to the audience in terms of how people can kind of start to talk about the kind of going from the learning path through to like learning enablement and then like, reinforcement, all the things further down the line?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Pim sort of kind of started this conversation. it has to be embedded in kind of your culture and your operating system, right? So and has to be part of the day to day. So encouraging sales leaders in particular to make sure that, like, as people come on board, they understand, like, this is the process of which we're in which we're doing it. But that evolution from using his individual checklist to something that is a common language across the whole organization, there's a lot of dependencies there. There are technical dependencies that that M can probably speak to, with respect to, like, how do you make it inspectable? How do you how do you make it repeatable? If it's not embedded in your sales process such that you're able to, like, have that a repeatable thing that is also inspectable. So and just creating that culture of accountability that this is what we're doing, and as a leader, leading by example. So not being afraid. You don't use MEDDIC as a leader in the last 2 weeks of the quarter. Be there using MEDDIC when you're doing pipeline generation 5 months earlier, when you're trying to get in that opportunity. That's where the hard work happens, right? And using those fundamentals across that whole journey, not just as a hey, let's see if this is going to qualify this this quarter.
Love that.
The one thing I'd add there, I think Cliff's response is spot on. The one thing I'd add is, just in my experience with leaders and sellers, it becomes less of an inspection when it's a part of your communication. So if you have sellers and you have leaders that are constantly communicating through the use of MEDDIC about their business, that just creates so much synergy, where reps are using MEDDIC not because the company's telling them they have to. Reps are using MEDDIC because there's more money in their pocket at the end of the quarter.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I love that. We have a question from the audience, which is, can we hear from you the most proud moment of when you've done an implementation of MEDDIC? Let's start with you, Caroline.
I think the proudest moment is really exactly what M says, is the face of a rep who has multiplied a deal by 4 or 5. And I've had this last year. I had 3 reps completely overachieving quota by 200%, just because they were coachable. They went for it. They went to the extra mile, but they saw that simple things like they saw the economic buyer was actually the champion, what we call the deal champion, the person that, because we have multiple champions, we can talk about the multiple champion thing, like the multiple pains, right? But in essence, just figuring out together, brainstorming with their managers and their teams, that like doing this as a common language with the pre-sales and the customer success and the SDRs, and brainstorming, figuring out that, wait a minute, the economic buyer is most likely your champion, going back to them, writing the 3 why, winning that deal, multiplying that deal by 2. This is really just like it feels like fireworks in your brain, right?
I love, like, it was like bullet points coming out there that each one of them could be its own, like, keynote topic. You know what I mean? Like, there's just brilliant fire there. And I think, that's one of the things I think we all love about MEDDIC, is just it tends to gravitate, it tends to magnetize all of these best practices towards it, because, like we've already talked about, it acts as that framework in which we can therefore build everything on top. That's why Cliff's analogy there of the operating system works so well, because we can kind of, once we have the common language, you can start to build all these things on top, whether it's software, whether it's value frameworks, whether it's departmental approaches and that sort of thing. So I love that. I'm going to pass the question to you, Em, the same question, your most proud moment with an implementation of MEDDIC, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's always at the rep level, right? To see folks grow and develop and earn and learn more through the use of MEDDIC is always just powerful. But to kind of go back to something Caroline said earlier that just really hits home with me every time it happens, is when, pain is not something that's known, right? And MEDDIC is used to create, to sort of identify the pain and help a customer really put some structure around that pain to get something done and really solve problems. To have a rep, kind of, get put on stage to tell their story, bring their champion to an event, all because of the use of MEDDIC, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the things that I've always noticed from talking to leaders like you folks, and some of the best people in our industry, there's this correlation between, in our industry, we're lucky. We have these high moments where we overachieve, where we hit our team goals, we smash the yearly target, whatever it is. And all of those things correlate with us earning money because it's generally a bonus, a commission related industry. But we never talk about the numbers. We never talk about how much was on the P60 or whatever the framework of how much we've earned is. It's those moments, it's the promotions, it's the people getting to the club, the people taking to the stage to tell the story that really bring us all together, which I always just think is such a great thing about the best in our industry. So Cliff, same question to you. You've had lots of experience.
Yeah, the person I of course I want to make money and I want to win. So those go without saying. Everyone on this call, I'm sure, feels that way. But taking part in the personal development of the people in my team is the number one reason why I do any of this. So when I see people that, have started as individual contributors and now have gone on through things we've learned together to become sales leaders and CEOs and CROs at other organizations, to me, that is the most satisfying thing ever. And I tell people in the interview process, and I'm like, hey, our goal is so that your career trajectory goes like this once you've been exposed to these methodologies. And when that comes true, that is hugely satisfying.
I love that. That's brilliant. So I think that is it. We're right up on time there. I know a couple of you have a hard stop. So for those on the panel, if you guys want people in the audience to connect with you, maybe put your LinkedIn in the box so people connect with you, that sort of thing. Because I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today on the panel. It's been like, I feel like I've just learned a whole ton, if nothing else. So I'm sure everyone else is exactly the same. So Caroline and Cliff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Andy.
No worries.
Bye.